Well, good morning and happy Father's Day to the fathers out here. If you were here on Mother's Day, then you might know, dads, what's about to come. But before you settle in and get your Sunday off, let me just say a couple ways that the dads here at Kish are killing it. Now, my wife told me after the last time I said killing it in that sort of way that maybe people don't know that that's a good thing. So here's ways that dads are killing it in a good way, 3 of them. For one, I think the stats confirm this, but there's a ton of dads who are not just, going to work, coming home, kicking off their shoes, turning on the TV, opening up the newspaper, and kind of staying away from all the work around the household. So we have dads who are getting involved in doing the dishes, doing the laundry, cooking meals, all this kind of stuff. And most importantly, really intentionally playing with their kids. I read several years ago that one of the most important things dads can do with their young children especially is kind of get on the floor and roughhouse around, play around, this sort of thing with them. And so I'm not sure. I'm looking at y'all here. Maybe your kids are, like 17 or 40 or something. But I don't know when that age stops. But the point is, it's really important. And so a dad hack, especially for y'all younger dads here, is let's say, for example, the trash needs to go out, and you just say to whoever's bugging you about that I'm doing a really important thing right now. Pastor Luke said I'm supposed to be wrestling around with these kids, and so, sorry, this is crucial work that I'm doing here. Number 2, way that dads are killing it. God has placed, we believe here, into the hands of men, of fathers, the role of leadership within families. And certainly the past year, the past 18 months or so, has provided plenty of opportunities for that to be a big challenge, right? How is your family going to respond through COVID? What precautions are you going to take or not take or this sort of thing? How are you going to work through some of the political challenges, all this kind of thing? And there's dads around church here, and I know because I've heard from them, that are not just kind of making it through, but are doing those things with some level of intention, and that's a big deal. Third, dads are, I think, opening up more than in the past. And so I've had, my position here allows me the privilege of talking with people who are working through anger issues, working through issues from their own childhoods that they're trying to get through, or dads who are simply trying to really be better husbands and better fathers. And that's something that's really commendable. And so I said on Mother's Day, and I really believe this strongly, there's a cultural joke about dads that's kind of like men are kind of emasculated and they're just sort of, a dumber and less in touch version of women. But that is not of God. That is a cultural lie. And the truth is that God made men and women to show his image to the world. And that includes our men's ability to show off God as men. And so if you're here today and you are a dad, a granddad, a stepfather, a father-in-law, some person who is connected to kind of a father-like figure in people's lives, please stand up, because I would like to take a minute to show that we here as a church, go ahead, you can stand up. We here as a church not only love you, but we also respect the really important role that you have within this world. So a little round of applause for them. Thank you very much. Okay, so from here on out, that part's done. If you are one of those people that stood, you have the rest of the Sunday off. That means you can get on your phone and text, you can take a little nap, you can eat a snack. Like I really, honestly, there's a few people here that are like, wait a second, is this any different than what I normally do? I was sure that after I said that last one, I shouldn't make that joke, but it was just too tempting. It was too tempting. Seriously, relax. If you are a woman or a kid or whatever else, are y'all with me, those of you who are not dads? what I want to do with you today is arm y'all with a secret weapon to use to support and help the dads in your lives. Now, they're not listening, so they're not going to get any of this. I'm just going to arm the non-dads with this secret weapon. Here we go. A lot of the information I got that I'm going to share today, I got from this here book. It's called Love and Respect. It's by a guy with a really odd name, Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. This is a book that I read a while back, and some of you may have heard of it. Some of you may have even read it. If you appreciate anything I share today and you want to kind of delve in more, this is the book to kind of go to for more resources on this. Here's the basic gist. I'm going to break it down pastorally into 3 points. Basic gist of this book, Love and Respect. So the first point is going to be blue versus pink. Second point is the secret weapon itself. And third point is going to be Jesus. So blue versus pink, secret weapon, and Jesus. Here we go. What does blue versus pink mean? Well, I think one thing it means is that there are differences between men and women. And our culture nowadays, if you pay any attention to this sort of thing, is going to say that is a constructed thing, that people can kind of create their own identity, and that all those differences don't actually exist in real life. But the Bible claims, and we agree with this, that God created us male and female. And that when God created us male and female, that has particular both physical differences between the genders, as well as oftentimes temperamental differences as well. Now, this oftentimes runs in a range, and so I'm not trying to box in everybody perfectly to this kind of range of things today. But what I want to say, or what this guy says in the book really, is that generally speaking, the following is true, okay? Both men and women want love and want respect. However, men primarily focus on the desire for respect, and women primarily focus on the desire for love. Men are affected more by a lack of respect, and women are affected more by a lack of love. Let me share with you 2 cultural examples that this group probably most of you will get, but anyone under 30 probably are not going to understand what I'm talking about at all in these 2 examples. The first is Rodney Dangerfield. Anybody familiar with Rodney Dangerfield? He has a very famous joke where he goes around and just repeats over and over again that I can't get no respect. I don't get no respect. I never get any respect. And the reason that joke is particularly funny is because we know that the nugget of truth inside that is that guys generally do want to get respect. Now, a few of you are looking at the screen and thinking, well, that says Aretha Franklin, and that's no guy, and she's singing, and you'll probably have this song in your head the rest of the day, so I apologize ahead of time. And I won't sing, R-E-S-P-E-C-T, right? So you guys are familiar with the song. You say, well, that's a woman saying. That song, if you didn't know this already, he talks about it in the book, was written actually by a guy. That song was written by a guy. And so, culturally speaking, there's this sense that men want to have respect. This is also true in the Bible, and we'll get to that in just a minute. What's the challenge with men primarily wanting respect and women primarily wanting love? What's the challenge? What's the blue versus pink issue that I'm talking about here? Well, the challenge is this. Because men are seeing the world through a certain set of glasses and women are seeing the world through a different set of glasses, that quite often what happens is the wires get crossed and we get to what Dr. Eggerichs calls the crazy cycle. Here's what I mean. A woman might say, is my husband loving me? And in order to have a loving relationship, they need to kind of work through all conflict, and they want to have peace and kind of settle that thing. And so they're gonna kind of go into that relationship and maybe bring up topics and say, we need to talk this through, we need to talk this through, we need to talk this through. And the man might see this as disrespectful, and thus he's going to respond by separating further. And the woman is going to reach out more intensely because she wants this loving intimacy. And he says, well, that's disrespectful. And he goes away further. And you end up with this kind of cycle that is unhelpful. Or another example could look like this. Let's say a wife says, man, my day was so tough. I was so busy. It was so challenging. And what she's communicating in that is, I want to be loved, and I want someone to meet me in this intimate space of my difficult day. And what he says is, I'll respect you by giving you your space. I'll give you some alone time, and I'll go away. And now she's frustrated because he's not loving her, and he was just trying to respect her because that's what he sees as the primary thing. And you can see how this cycle can be problematic. Again, I want to reiterate that this is a principle, and I think both men and women want both love and respect, but the principle is that because we see the world with different glasses, we can get in this crazy cycle where she reaches out in love, he feels disrespected, he tries to respect, she feels unloved, and it goes on and on, this sort of thing. So what's the solution? Here's the, again, guys, you're not listening, right? Here's the secret weapon, okay? The secret weapon is this. It's found in Ephesians chapter 5. Here's what Paul wrote regarding husbands and wives. Ephesians chapter 5, I'm going to start reading at verse 31. It says this. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And this is the physical, spiritual, and emotional joining of two people into one, right? The two shall become one flesh. This mystery is profound, and I'm saying that it refers to Christ and the church. So somehow this unity of a man and a woman is representing the unity between Christ and the church in a mysterious, beautiful way. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. Let each one of you love his wife as himself. So this is men loving the wife as Christ loved the church. And we talked about that some on Mother's Day. And then the second half of verse 33, this is where the secret weapon is found. It says, let the wife see that she respects her husband. So the concept I'm sharing, and this is the primary point for today, is women, kids, whoever is trying to support a dad or a male or a man in your life, the way to do that, a primary way to do that, is by showing respect. Now, the concept is pretty simple, but that concept gets awfully complicated. If you're going through this in your brain, you're probably thinking, that concept gets awfully complicated just as soon as you try to put it into action. Here's why. Some of you could be thinking, here or online or however, could be thinking, well, that might be easy to do if the guy that I was with or married to or whatever was respectable. But how am I supposed to respect this guy? How am I supposed to respect him? I find this very interesting. This is in the book, and this is one of the most powerful things to me. We're in church, and so I'm guessing that most of you here in church have heard of this idea of unconditional love. And unconditional love means something like, regardless of what the other person does, you continue to love them, right? Regardless of what they do, you show that person love. But I'm curious how many of you have ever thought of this idea of unconditional respect? Unconditional respect. Most often, culturally and in church, I think, the idea is that we show respect when respect is earned. We don't respect just because. And yet here in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 33, it says, let the wife see that she respects her husband. It doesn't say, let the wife see that she respects her excellent husband. Let the wife see that she respects her husband as long as he's doing respectable things. It just says, let the wife see that she respects her husband. I think that there's something to be said for some idea of unconditional respect. Now, a few of you might have changed your question at this point. You might have said, well, now here in church, Pastor Luke, you're asking me to just lie. So first I just wasn't going to respect him, and now you want me to lie and say I respect him when I don't actually respect him. That's just lying. No, I'm not saying that. Here's what I would say. I think everybody, if we think about it long enough and maybe creatively enough, could find some area that's worth respecting, that's worth showing respect towards the dad, husband, father, whoever it is in your sphere. It might take some creativity, like I said, but I'm sure there's something there. Maybe he does a great job, going to work and working hard to make sure your family is provided for financially. Maybe he does a great job fixing the things in the house. Maybe he doesn't do those things, and maybe he does a great job wrestling around with the kids, in the living room floor for an hour or 2 hours every night or something like this. But here's what I think is that what's interesting about the power of showing respect to a man is this, and I'm speaking as a man. And remember, guys aren't listening, even though I can tell you're listening. What's interesting is this. You might think, as a woman, and I can't be in your brain, but you might think that if I want this guy to love him, I need to show him love. But the secret weapon is you actually don't show. That is not the primary way to get at the guy's heart. The primary way is to start with respect. And when you start with respect, what you might find is that guy, feeling respected by you, is actually going to respond with deeper and more intimate love. You see, what's weird is we do the thing hoping that we get the thing, but what we actually have to do is do a different thing to get the thing that we actually wanted. So this is the idea. If you respect a guy, he's more likely to move towards you in love, and then that's able to give you more reasons to respect the guy, and thus he moves you more in love, and so on and so forth. And you can see how this could break this crazy cycle I talked about earlier. But, as you could probably imagine, in our real lives, things don't always go this way. In our real lives, things don't always go this way. I know we're in church, and I know we have healthy and long-lasting marriages, but I'm guessing that everybody in this room who's been in some relationship with somebody at some point has experienced some issue along these lines. You want to respect him, but he didn't take the trash out again. Or, as is in my case, my wife wants to respect me, but we still didn't even start the bathroom project that we've been supposed to be working on for the past year. Or maybe he just is always on his phone and he's not wrestling around with the kids like you had hoped he would do, or something like this. And because of this book or because of what I share, you want to be respectful and you just don't even know where to start, and it seems like this crazy cycle is going and you don't know how to stop. And so oftentimes I think what women do in those circumstances is what we might think of as bugging their husband or spouse, or maybe you'd think of it as nagging, or the Bible will refer to this sometimes as this idea of quarreling. And so at the risk of having every woman in church mad at me, it's Father's Day though, so I figure I can take that risk. I want to share with you two interesting proverbs, okay? The first one is this. It's Proverbs 21, verse 9. Here's what it says. It says, "It is better to live in a corner of the housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife." It's better to live in the corner of a housetop than in a house shared with a quarrelsome wife. The second proverb I want to share with you is Proverbs 25, verse 24, which says, "It is better to live in a corner of the housetop thank you, than in the house shared with a quarrelsome wife." And part of the reason I wanted to share with you is just I find that so interesting that the same word for word, the same verse is two places in the book of Proverbs. It's like, why is that there two times? But I think I get it. I think this book helps me to understand what's happening, what's being described here, which is this. The wife is thinking that by going through this conflict, right, if we can just work this out, we can finally have peace and a good, healthy situation dynamic in our house, right? So she sees the quarreling as, I'm reaching out to remove the differences we have, and so we can be united in love. But the husband sees this as a disrespectful move. And he says, you keep bugging me, you keep nagging me about this stuff, I'm about to get my stuff and I'm about to move up to the corner of my roof. It's precisely here that we get to our third point in today's sermon. And that third point is Jesus, and I'll explain why. You see, the cycle continues. The unhelpful cycle, the crazy cycle is going to continue as long as each person If the husband wants respect, but he feels disrespected, and if the wife wants love, but she feels unloved, you could see how that cycle is going to continue forever and ever and ever, unless one of those two individuals is going to stop the cycle somehow. And this is why Jesus is so important in a Christian marriage. If a guy is a respect-seeking vacuum, and a woman is a love-seeking black hole, then nothing is going to get resolved, and that marriage is going to become more and more and more unhealthy over time. But when either person gets connected with Jesus, when either the guy or his wife finds their identity in God's intimate and personal relationship, they get attached to resources and to a sanity and a level of identity in their own self that allows them to make a move to break the cycle. It allows them to make a move to break that cycle. In other words, if both our fulfillment is found only in what our spouse offers, we're going to be unhappy. But if you think about your life as a Christian, what does that look like? It should look something like, God, through Jesus, has filled me up so much that I have resources to offer. I can offer to my husband respect unconditionally, or I could offer to my wife love unconditionally. And now, here's the beautiful irony of life as a Christian person in a relationship is this. The beautiful irony is this. With life with God, not only do you get filled with Jesus, but you also get to enjoy the icing on the cake, which is the healthy relationship. So now everything that your wife gives you respect, all of that is icing on the cake. Or if your husband is loving you, all of that love is icing on the cake. And it goes beyond because Jesus has filled you up, and everything else is just icing on the cake from there on out. That's the general gist of what's talked about in this book, Love and Respect. So if you want to look into it more, let me know. We can get a copy of that book for you or something like that. So before I get out of here, I want to apply this. I have 4 things to apply this passage. This is speaking primarily to women, teens, anybody who's supporting a dad, even if you're a guy and it's your dad or whatever. Number 1, find ways to show that you respect this dad or this guy. Now, a couple key, this is like super like hacks at getting better at this from my perspective, is it's often helpful to do it in writing or in front of other people. You might not think this. If you're a woman, this is not the way your brain is wired, which is perfectly fine. God made us different on purpose. But if you want to really show and support your dad, husband, whoever, what you do is you show respect in writing and in front of others. Number 2, read the book Love and Respect and discuss. Now this is fascinating because we're wired differently to discuss with the guy in your life, how am I doing at respecting you? And what you might find in that discussion is that, wow, I had no idea that this particular thing that I was doing was showing that I disrespected you. Because my brain is not wired that way, I would never see that that's the case. But now that we've had this discussion, wow, I see that that's an easy fix for me, and now our marriage is much healthier and happier for it. Number 3, respect him during conflict. And then I wrote on my paper in parentheses, still have conflict. You see, there's a terrible lie that says that any marriage that's healthy does not have conflict. That's absolute garbage. Conflict is helpful because if we don't have any conflict, we're never going to grow or change or develop or anything like this. So conflict is very important and very helpful. But what we oftentimes misunderstand is that respect can happen during conflict. Because you're having conflict does not mean you have to disrespect a different person. And lastly, receive the love of Jesus. Receive the love of Jesus. It's as simple as saying, changing from our cultural sense of relationships is often this. It's often, this guy is going to love me to fill me up, to make me happy. And just trust me, they're never going to perfectly do that. That's just never going to happen. And so what we all need to do, men, women, whoever, is to be filled up in our relationship with Jesus, and then everything else becomes icing on the cake. One last thing, I'm going to pray, and we'll get out of here. If you're a dad here today, we want to honor you. There are jars of trail mix out here on the lobby counter, so feel free to grab one on the way out. We love you. Thanks. And if you're a wife, child, whoever, please find some ways today, Father's Day, and throughout the rest of the year to show respect. It'll mean more. I know it might sound weird in your head, but just trust me, as a guy, it will mean a lot to the guys in your life. Let me pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you that you, in your infinite wisdom, have created this awesome dynamic that has both men and women, and that anytime, like I think C.S. Lewis said, anytime that we walk into a room, if we don't have a spouse or somebody, we might not be able to get the fullest picture of what's happening. We can't see all of creation in the best way without having the views from both genders that you've created. And so I pray, Lord, that you'd help us to be a church where we are all being so filled with love, our identity is being shaped by you, so that we don't need to be respect-seeking vacuums or love-seeking black holes, but we instead can be filled with the love of Christ so much that we can just see our relationships with others as being icing on the cake, and that we can go into those relationships ready to love you by loving and respecting each other. Pray this all in Jesus' name. Amen.